So I got to do exactly what I love to do in college. I played the cello 9, 10, 11, maybe 12 hours a day. I played scales for an hour every morning for 4 years. And I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I loved learning that much about my instrument and how to play it and getting that much better at it. But when it came time to figure out how to make a living at it, that was a little different. I really wasn't interested in playing in an orchestra and playing the same piano concertos every year of my life, or playing in an opera orchestra and playing the same operas every year. And so I decided that doing what I love and loving what I do might be different things. And I was trying to figure out where I might want to go and what I might want to do. And I knew I loved working with my hands. I loved technical things, and I ended up assisting my dad when I was home for college in his dental office for some procedures that somebody needed after hours. And I kind of all of a sudden realized what it is that my dad actually did. I'd never had a filling, I'd never had a cavity, never had orthodontics, so I really didn't know what it was that my dad did every day. And I looked at it and I realized that dentistry is arts and crafts. It's just in somebody's mouth. And it's a lot of fun. And so the next day I went to the school that my dad had gone to in the city, the dental school that he'd gone to, and went in and I said, what do I need to do to get here? And he said, well, have you taken these classes? No. Have you taken chemistry? No. Have you taken biology? No. Well, what have you taken? Well, I know how to play the cello really well. So I went back for my senior year of college and started taking different classes and started taking pre-med classes. So I was in freshman chemistry as a senior, freshman biology as a senior. And I came back and finished those classes in California and applied and went to dental school and started working with my dad. That was a lot of fun.
Doctor, can I ask you a quick question before you sit down? Especially for the younger people here, you were basically an expert cello player.
Yeah.
How much did the music and your knowledge of music, being able to read music, being able to play it, help you with all the math that you had to take and the science aspect of becoming a dentist?
People talk about that a lot. I'm not necessarily sure how much of a big difference that makes. I think probably there's a bit of a correlation with musicians and basic arithmetic, because you're constantly counting to 4 or 5 or 7. But beyond that, I'm not necessarily sure that it really integrates with math skills all that well.
But is it not true that music actually creates different pathways in the brain that allows you to think differently than you would otherwise?
There's some studies that suggest that, yeah.
I'm getting at everybody should play an instrument.
Everybody should play an instrument.
Being in the restaurant industry, it's bread, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, what I do is I make money for throwing parties. So that's something. We had a band at Jack's Restaurant Bar, Crescent Drive, right here in Pleasantville. Right? We should do this open 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Just want to get that out of the way. We did live music. We did have a band Friday night, 80s covers, Spasmatics. So we'll be back up for it. But basically, my job that night was to make sure everybody was having a good time. And that's kind of what I do. But I did not want to be in the restaurant business. And I went to college in order to get out of the restaurant business. See, the reason I hated the business, though, I don't want to put it all in business, is because I started working for my mom and my dad when I was 11. Okay, so they had a little restaurant in Concord in the 80s. And while all my friends were out during the summer swimming, camping, truth or dare, and when you're like 11, 12, truth or dare takes on a whole different which I think is really fun game. So while they were doing that, I'm learning how to balance 3 plates in my hand and pour coffee and tell you the special at the same time. This is not something I like doing. My brothers and I did it together. We worked in the parents' restaurant. We hated it. We weren't very good at it. We complained all the time. But my parents kept us around because they didn't pay us. So the advantage outweighed the disadvantages. So I worked maybe about 6 or 7 years in the restaurant, and I finally moved after I graduated from Clay Valley High. You're not holding it. I think you guys will do this a little more fun. When I graduated from Clay Valley, I decided to go to junior college, not because I particularly liked school, but if I went to a college far enough away, I didn't have to work for my folks anymore. So I went to Long Beach City College. I took political science, Spanish, communication studies, but I didn't take math. And that was a bad idea because I didn't know that you have to actually earn more money than you spend in order to not live at home. So after a semester, I was out of money. I didn't know what the heck was going on. I was still in the restaurant business, waiting tables and not cutting it. So I came back home. Kept going to different community colleges. I could do like communitycollege.com, like hotels.com, and rate them for you. I went to so many, dropped out of so many. It took me a long time because once you're in the restaurant business making that money that you make from waiting tables, you got $150, $200 in your pocket at night, you get to go out and drink beers and bowl and have a good time, and you can go to school the next day and read Plato's Republic. Like, which one of these do I prefer doing? So I kept in the restaurant business, waiting tables, finally made it to San Francisco State at the age of 25. So it took me a while to get to school. I got in the communications department because I walked through the college and looked at everybody's picture in front of all the offices of their department parties. Comm department looked like they had great parties. Right? Got to go to this department. I got my communications degree, bachelor's degree. I just stayed in school. I go, what the heck? I'll just stay here. So I got my master's degree. Towards the end of my master's degree, somebody told me at the school that, you can start teaching with your master's degree. There's an opening next semester if you want to teach a class. I said, you need 30 people in a room, have to listen to me, and you're going to pay me for it? I guess. This is amazing. I'm going to be a teacher. So I started teaching, and then I realized a couple things. Like, there were 30 people in the room, but they weren't listening to me. It's not very, hello, right here. And then as a lecturer at San Francisco State, when I got my paycheck, I looked at it and I go, what was this for? Is this for today? No, it's for the month. I'm like, whoa! I teach a lot of classes here. So I went on to USF, and the pay wasn't too bad. I was doing pretty well, but around that time, I'd gotten out of the restaurant business, no longer waiting tables. My brother Dave opened a restaurant in Daly City, and he asked me to come help open the restaurant, hire the staff, train them, and then I could go back to teaching. Well, 5 years later, I was still there, being the GM of the place. And I realized I loved it. It was amazing. When I was waiting tables, if somebody caught me sipping wine, I'd be fired. As an owner, if I'm sipping wine, it's quality control. I'm making sure this is a good product. But what I really loved about the business was the people. It's just amazing to become friends with everyone that comes into the restaurant. When we opened Jack's in 2010, the next year my brother Chris got married, and I baptized my daughter in Greece, so the whole family went to Greece. 4 customers from our restaurant were invited to those parties, and we met them. And that's the kind of place we like to run, and the kind of environment I get to work in. So even though I went to school, I got my communications degree, and it did help me in the restaurant business. I ended up essentially going back to what I started with. But I do want to say this about going to school. And I think a lot of people said this. You may not end up doing what you went to school for, but it makes your world a lot bigger. You meet people, you come across ideas, and you read things that you might never have read. When I was in high school, they assigned us Shakespeare. And I looked at it, I'm like, this is ridiculous. It's very boring. In college, we got to read Shakespeare. This dude can write. This is amazing. And so your world opens up, and it's a fantastic experience, whether or not you end up getting into the field that you got your degree for. So I highly recommend it. Jack, 7 days a week. Thank you very much.
All right, no one has to tell me to stand up this time. I'll do it all on my own because I get nudged. So my journey through life is not that much different. In fact, it's quite a combination of what we've got here on the panel. So I'll keep it short, but do some highlights. So I grew up in Detroit. You can imagine that was a little bit of a challenge. I grew up with a single parent. I'm sure some of the kids in this room are doing the same thing. I grew up with a mom that received gift baskets from the church at Christmas time, probably, right? She worked at the auto factory. She was also a waitress in a bar for a while as well. What's that? Oh, my God. Is that better? Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. I hate microphones, actually. I'd rather just yell to you all if you're okay with that. So I'll yell. I'll talk louder. So, growing up in that kind of an environment, we did move out of Detroit when I was about 12. I grew up around a lot of affluential people with an awful lot of money, and we didn't have any. All that did was gave me character to go and continue to try. Since I left high school, I've been a paramedic. I've had my real estate license. I've been an auto mechanic for quite a bit of time. You kind of name it. And I keep moving. Now I've owned my own company a couple different times. My wife is in the back. She owns her own company. I help her with that. I've been at the Microsoft Corporation twice. I've been at the Chrysler Corporation for 15 years. Took management training through there. Fortunately for me, they paid for my college education. One thing that I learned in my last stint at Microsoft, and I'm really surprised nobody asked me, why'd you quit Microsoft? Right? I'll tell you. I didn't have the passion for it anymore. I love sales. I love what I'm doing. I'm really good at what I do. I've never sold anybody something they didn't want or need. If you don't need it, I'm not going to sell it to you. I've had fights with people verbally on, you don't need this. Yes, I do. No, you don't. And I'll tell you why. And then finally they agree with me, and then they bring me back later and I get a bigger deal, right? Because it's the honesty. What I did learn at Microsoft is something more that I want to talk to you guys about. Keep in mind that I ran a sales team that worked specifically with higher education, actually K through 12 and higher ed. So there's a lot of questions out there, again, that I'm surprised you guys haven't asked yet. How's my kid going to get into college? How am I going to afford it? Has everybody here got the money for it? I thought I did. I've got a kid that just went to the University of Arizona that ate up every penny I had. Right? It's not easy. You heard a lot of different stories here. People working to go to college. There's grants out there that you can get as well. You have to keep trying. I have my daughter right now that wants to be a vet tech. That's what we were talking about. Someday she'd like to be a veterinarian. It's not in her path right now. She's not there mentally to do that. She's 20 years old. She graduated from Monte Vista High School. She had one of the best educations in the state. No doubt about that at all. She's not ready to make that move. So I encouraged her, step back a little bit or step over to the side a little bit, get grounded, get what you want to do, and then keep moving forward. I encourage everybody in this room that's thinking about that once they graduate to do the same. It's key, like everybody said here, to do what's passionate to you. You don't know what that passion is. I'll guarantee you, as high school kids, there's probably 1% of you that knows what that passion is. Roll with it. What John said earlier when we first started talking is something that I heard from almost every senior leader at a university around here. We do not, and by here I mean the West Coast. Right? That was my territory. We don't have an unemployment problem in the United States. How many people agree with that? Do you agree we do not have an unemployment problem in the United States? So everybody else thinks that we do, right? Their words are, we don't have an unemployment problem in the United States. We have the wrong skill set for the jobs that are available in the United States. And that is absolutely true. But you can reach that skill set in a lot of different ways, because I can guarantee you not everybody in this room has the cash, has the ability to go to college, right out of college. Go to a junior college, community college, go to DVC. It's a great, great institution. Get your associate's degree there. Then figure out, and if you do well, and some of us need that extra step to really pull ourselves up. If you do well, you can get a scholarship into Berkeley, into Stanford. But you have to do well. That being said, there's also other avenues that you can take to get your degree. This young man here was talking about programming and computer language and gaming, things like that. We can't hire enough people that have, my company cannot hire enough people that have certifications in Microsoft technologies. You have Microsoft here in the Valley, you have Oracle here in the Valley, you have Adobe Systems, all these major players in technology have certification programs. What that means to you is if you can't afford to go to college, while you're in high school, you can get certified. With that certification, you can get a job that's going to pay you someplace between $50,000 and $85,000 a year.
And all those companies have job listings open right now.
If you do a search on careerbuilder.com today and just do a search on here in the Valley on Microsoft Tech, on the word Microsoft, I'll guarantee you come up with about 30,000 jobs. Spread that nationally, right? There's not an unemployment problem in the United States. There's a skill set issue here. Now, I will tell you, as everybody here said as well, life's a journey. I've been a paramedic. I've been a realtor. I've been a mechanic. I made more money freaking fixing cars than I did people's lives. I was getting paid $5 an hour to be a paramedic. I was getting $12 an hour to work on cars. By the way, I liked them both about the same. Somebody crapped more than the others, but it was all dependent on the day. My next career move, we're planning on being ranchers. If you can believe that, we're moving back to Tennessee someday, and we're looking at our journey to start a ranch, be a little bit like Wente. But keep those visions, keep those goals in mind. So I encourage you, after our next lovely speaker, after all of these lovely speakers, and me wasting your time, ask a bunch of questions. How do I get into college? What are some avenues that I can take away with? Get your questions answered. Don't just sit here.
So, how did I get here? I am one of the few at the age of 3, probably when I could say veterinarian, that's what I wanted to be. Had a little bit of changes kind of in my high school years. It was all related to animals. I knew that that's where I needed to be. But, it was zookeeper, it was marine land, working with dolphins, going on expeditions. Steve Irwin wasn't around then, but if I could have been Steve Irwin, that's what I would have done. I was at the vet with my cat, my dad, and my mom, and I was really interested, and that was when he said, "Oh, do you have any interest in this?" And my mom says, she's wanted to be a vet her whole life. I'm like, I've kind of changed my mind. Sure. He says, well, come on in for a day and see what it's all about. You don't want to go down this career path if you don't know what this is all about. So I job shadowed him for a day, and I came home, and I was extremely passionate about the whole profession. It was amazing to me. And I thought I was passionate about it then. So that was at the age of 15, got a job actually at that vet practice and kept working through there. Some would say I'm stubborn. If you know me, you can probably agree with that. And it took that amount of stubbornness to actually get me to where I am today. When I actually said, I do want to be a veterinarian, and it takes 8 to 9 years, and it's a long, arduous process before you can actually hang your shingle up. My family says, that's great, and we applaud you. You're going to have to pay for it. So I ended up going to community college, and it was the best education I had gotten. It was a great step that actually got me a lot more grounded in what I wanted to do, and in the sciences and the math department and that sort of thing. It really gave me what I needed to launch forward and get my bachelor's degree. From there, my dream had always been to go to UC Davis, so that was about the only school I applied to, and thankfully I got it in. It's a definite passion throughout the whole process of getting to be a veterinarian. And then beyond there, we graduate and get to stand up and go, I finally did it. I'm a doctor, I'm a veterinarian, this is awesome. And then you go into your first exam room where there's not a clinician behind you telling you the answers anymore. So you get to delve on all of this knowledge and everything else that you had worked so long to get to. And every day is an awesome challenge. You never know what's going to walk through the door, and it's a creative profession. I get to work with my hands. I get to, take the opportunity to save critters' lives and interact with people that love these critters. At the practice that I'm at now, it's a very family-oriented practice, and I finally found my niche there. There's all different aspects of veterinary medicine you can go into. You can go into research, you can go into teaching, you can specialize as well. We've got specialties all across the board of, ophthalmologists, dentists, dermatologists, neurologists, anything and everything. Or you can do what I've decided is my passion and my path is general practice. The reason why I like that aspect of things is I get to know the families. I get to know, the patients that they bring in. You get to see them as youngsters, and you get to follow them through their whole lives. And it's a good aspect of being able to connect with people and improve their bonds with their critters and help them out with their problems, share in their joys, and help them through the hard times. It's a challenge every day. You never know, again, what's going to come through the door. It may be, the beloved pet of somebody that's going through some major issues in their life, and now their beloved pet is sick. And you got to help them through that. And that is one of the definite hard things about the profession, but it's also really rewarding when you can actually get them through and help them through it. I say, I thought I was passionate about it at, 15 or 16, but every day with it being more and more of a challenge, it just gets more and more passionate for me. Did I know when I was 3? Yes. I think a lot of people at 3 say, oh, I love puppies and kittens, so that's what I want to do. When I had the aptitude for math and science and loved critters and figured I wanted to do something that, it combined all of those aspects, for me, it was kind of a straightaway path. But there's a lot of people in the profession that have had careers and twists and turns through their education pathway to get to where they're at too. And if you end up with that DVM behind your name and you're passionate about it, it's an absolutely great career. So I encourage anybody out here who has any interest, give me a call. Come job shadow.
I want to give you guys 2 lessons from my life. First of all, remember the word serendipity, because this is something that's really, really important in my life. I mentioned earlier that I am going to be coaching the girls lacrosse team at Alhambra High School. Part of the reason I'm doing that, I grew up playing lacrosse, high school, college, so I have a great passion for the sport. But part of the reason I want to work with these kids at Alhambra is that I want to give them something that I honestly didn't really have. I was lucky enough to be raised by 2 very intelligent people. My mom has a master's from Cal. My dad was a high school English teacher. I have a good diction because of that. I understand the language pretty well. But I wasn't raised really to be a great student. So I kind of coasted by. I didn't take advantage of all the educational opportunities that were put in front of me. At one point, when I was young, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I liked animals. I don't know if I can cut it and all that. Shoot shots. I don't know if I can do that. And one time I wanted to be an FBI agent. One time I wanted to be, a psychologist. I ended up getting a psychology degree, but that was a really circuitous route that I took. So in high school, I didn't really study, honestly. I graduated with about a 3.0, and that was as much luck as anything else. And, and when I say that you make your own luck, this is the honest truth. You make your own luck. I mean, you have to take advantage of the opportunities that are put in front of you and seek them out if possible. I was good at certain things in high school. I was good at organizing. I was the president of the ski club for 2 years, and we had the best ski trips ever. It sounds minuscule, but I mean, for the time, when you're handling thousands of dollars, I'm literally walking across campus with thousands of dollars in my pocket to take it to the business office, deposit it in our account. That's a pretty big responsibility. I also created, I was the founder of the lacrosse team at Berkeley High School. 5.5 years later, they won the state championship. So I think that we created a pretty good legacy, my friends and I, back then. But after I graduated, or my senior year, because I decided to go to a place called Whittier College outside Los Angeles in Southern California. The single reason I went there was to play lacrosse. I had a great lacrosse team, I wanted to play lacrosse, that was it. I didn't go there to study, I didn't go there to expand my mind. I mean, I took a whole bunch of really cool classes, but I left Whittier after spending like $25,000, which at the time was a year and a half of private school. Now it's significantly more, obviously. So like 25 grand on my year and a half, and I graduated, I left there with a 2.1 GPA. That's how much I studied. I then transferred to San Diego State. I was on the lacrosse team there for a couple of weeks, I quit, and then that semester I got to a 3.3. So lacrosse was obviously kind of detracting from what I was trying to accomplish in school. I became a better student at San Diego State because the environment worked better for me. I worked better among 35,000 students rather than 1,100, believe it or not. Whittier, 1,100 students, San Diego State at the time, 35,000. And I just felt more comfortable there. And between us, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I personally believe that going to a big school is actually better for you as an education because of the fact that a big school is really much more like the real world. I mean, a lot of people feel like they need that one-on-one instruction and the attention to the instructors, the professors, you need to be in a class of 15 people or whatever. I felt like what I really got out of college more than anything else was my ability to assert myself. I had classes where there were 250 people in my class. And yet I always got to know my professors, I always asked questions that kind of in a roundabout way ended up translating what I do now. I ask questions, that's my job. Getting back to the whole serendipity. Who knows what serendipity means? Students, not parents. Any students? All right. Basically, serendipity is taking advantages of chance encounters, chance things that happen in your life. Taking full advantage of and being lucky in amongst them. And this is how I got into TV. It's not how I got into it. This is how I got the idea to be in TV. And this is the point I'm really trying to drive home to. One fall semester, it was probably like 89 at San Diego State. Mr. Gross and I were there at the time. I'm walking across the campus. San Diego State has a beautiful campus. If you go there, go. It's a great school. Walking across the campus, I run into this guy by the name of Chris Wells, who's a friend of mine from my first semester in the dorms. I got to be pretty good buddies with him. And so we run into each other. We hadn't seen each other since the previous spring. We're just chatting, catching up. And he says to me, I was thinking about you during the summer. I'm like, okay, that's weird, but why? And he says, well, one day I was sitting there watching the NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Tom Brokaw was the main anchor of NBC Nightly News quite a few years ago. You guys may not remember it. But anyway, he was a legendary TV anchor. And Chris says to me, and I was thinking to myself, who does this guy remind me of? And he said that Brokaw's voice reminded him of me. And so it was at that moment that I said, TV news. I can do that. That was the very first time I ever considered the idea. I had a degree in psychology. There was a time where I literally wanted to get a PhD in psychology, become a child psychologist in Beverly Hills, because there are a lot of rich people with a lot of screwed up kids. I would break it in. That's what I thought. Unlike Louisa, I didn't want to be in school that long because I really wasn't a great student. I mean, I just didn't have the attention span or something. Maybe I'm ADHD, I don't know. I just couldn't focus that well for that length of time and be really comfortable knowing that I'd have to spend another 4 or 5, 6 years in school or whatever to get a PhD. And so when this light in my head went on, TV news. I then had another very, very serendipitous moment, and that was in another class. In the back of my mind now, I'm thinking TV news. And I'm reading this one text that we had, and there was just one passage from this text that mentioned very backhandedly. It said something about an internship in Washington, D.C. And I was like, wow, go to Washington, D.C., be an intern, kind of learn the thing. So I literally went to Washington, D.C. because of that passage in that text. I interned for 2 weeks at Al Gore's office, back when he was a senator from Tennessee. 2 weeks. Then I transferred to CNN in Washington, D.C. And at the time, CNN was non-union. They'd been around for a number of years, but they were still very much starting out. They weren't the juggernaut they are now, or whatever you want to call them. as an intern, 40 hours a week there, I was running camera for the main anchors and for some of the shows. I was running teleprompter. Teleprompter is what you read, the words go up the screen, and you have to be right on. And at the time, right now, when you roll a teleprompter, it's all computerized. So you just kind of roll it, you make sure you're kind of on time with the way the person's reading it. Back then, you actually had this conveyor belt that you had to put scripts down onto, and you had to do that all while rolling the teleprompter at the same time. It's really, really nerve-wracking, and you're doing it for a national broadcast. During that experience, I met President Nixon. I mean, it was an amazing experience. I mean, interning, and I have to echo what everybody else is saying about internship. Being an intern is the greatest experience you'll have. You won't get paid anything. I worked 40 hours a week for nothing. In fact, I had to pay to be there. It was part of a program called the Washington Center. I had to pay like $4,000 to be there as part of the program. I think plus housing and all this other stuff. So it was expensive. And yet, it gave me the foundation for going back to San Diego, interning at this TV station there, coming back to the Bay Area for the summer, interning at Channel 2, which is where I am now. And it's because of that internship here in summer of 1990 that I became a reporter at Channel 2, starting in September of '96. So, a serendipitous conversation that I had with a friend walking across the campus, a serendipitous passage in a text that just kind of mentioned an internship in Washington, D.C. Those two things changed my life. I have no idea where I would be right now if I hadn't had that conversation with Chris. And he and I are still friends. We're friends with everybody on Facebook, I guess, but we're still keeping in touch. And he and I just, actually on Facebook, just mentioned we're going to go get together out there or something like that sometime soon. He actually ended up working for the United States Geological Survey. So, you never know where you're going to end up. You really don't. But what I tell you is what I have told, and what I will tell all the girls on this lacrosse team. Take advantage of everything that's in front of you. If your parents are going to spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year on school, take advantage of it. All right? Don't make them waste their money. And more importantly, don't waste your own time. You're there for a reason. And if you don't take advantage of those things, whether it's in high school, it's junior high, you're there to learn. That's the goal. Learn as much as you can about the world. It's a huge world. And everybody here can tell you, the more you know, the less you realize you know. There's so much in the world. Just go to the library and look at all the books that you have not read. Millions of books you haven't read. And you're never going to read all the books. No question about it. You can read maybe, a few hundred, a few thousand possibly, but you're never going to know everything in the world. You're never even going to know everything about one topic. I've been in TV news for a long time, and there's plenty about it I still don't know. I call myself a jack of all trades. So it's my job, just so you know. I go out, I get the story, whatever the story is. Today I went to the University of California, Berkeley. I interviewed the dean of the Goldman School of Public Policy. His name is Henry Brady. We talked politics. We talked about the current presidential election. So I interviewed him, and then I pulled off of what's called our feeds. We get feeds from CNN, we get feeds from Fox. Video from the presidential campaign today in Virginia. Both Romney and the president were there. And so I put together a story. It's going to be on tonight at 10 o'clock on Channel 2, KTVU. Don't forget to watch. Possibly while you're at Jack's. Make sure they put that on the TV.
We'll be playing it in the lounge.
Exactly. So, to give you a nutshell though, if you're interested in TV, it's a great job. It really is. I have had more experiences than everybody on this table put together, literally. I do not exaggerate when I say that. I've been in huge snowstorms. I've been in huge wildfires. I've witnessed an execution. I have been on countless crime scenes. I've seen, sad to say, dozens of dead people because I'm on crime scenes. I've flown Blue Angels. I've flown in military planes a couple of times. I've met senators, congressmen, governors, rock stars, movie stars, all kinds of sports stars. Name one, I've probably met them if they've been in the Bay Area in the past number of years. Best night of my life as a reporter, November 1st, 2010. Anybody have any idea what that was?
Giants.
That's the night the Giants won the World Series. Right? That night, I was in a bar in San Francisco, watching with all these other people, and then as soon as they won, we went out on the street. 3,000 people joined us in the street, blocked out the street, climbed on buses, threw toilet paper. I was getting doused with beer and champagne, and not by choice, but for what it was, I mean, it was my favorite team. Sorry, I love the A's too. I really do. I love the A's too. I do cheer for everything Bears. I grew up literally hating the Raiders, but I do cheer for the Raiders now, unless they're playing. All right, so the bottom line is, especially if you get to become a reporter in a market where you grew up, in the Bay Area, you get to do that, you get to experience everything. I mean, for the older guys, Ronnie Lott was one of my heroes growing up. Ronnie Lott, one of the greatest defensive backs in the history of the NFL. He and I are now on first name basis. I say him, hey, how's it going? I mean, literally, that's because of my job, that's what I get to do. I'll give you one more story just to pitch what I do. I was covering the 2007 All-Star Game at AT&T Park in San Francisco. The day of the home run derby, I was walking around, we were just all there covering it. And I'm walking around and someone says, hey, Sasaki, did you have to pay to get in here? I'm like, no, I didn't have to pay to get in here. I'm getting paid right now to be here. So they had to pay hundreds of dollars or more to get into the stadium. I was paid to be here. So that's the kind of experience. Now, granted, I've been kind of slanting towards sports. But today I talked to one of the greatest minds in politics, one of the greatest analysts in politics, and someone who people pay thousands of dollars to be in his classes. And I get to go and talk to him just for a few minutes and pick his brain and see how the experts talk. I mean, I literally would call up people just like these folks and pick their brains every day about the story that I'm doing. And so, in the end, what I do, though it's not kind of a long-term project, I'm in school every day. I'm learning something new about the world, about myself, about people, about a business or some kind of entity or whatever. I do that every day, and then I turn around and tell you about what I learned that night. And that's my job. I learn as much as I can, as quickly as I can. I put it in as concise a manner as I possibly can, and then you guys get to see that too. That's my job. So be a TV reporter, but before you do that, whether you become a veterinarian, an FBI agent, you work for the city, whatever you do, study as much as you possibly can because there's so much in this world to learn. Right? Questions? Yes, ma'am.
For the veterinarian, what is your duty salary?
Very good question. There's a huge range. From first of all, from first year graduate to I'm 10 years out of school now, so there's a real huge range. So first year graduates in an internship or right out of school at this stage can expect about $65,000. If you specialize, you're upwards into the 200 to 300,000 and anywhere in between. So, and if you volunteer or work in Lindsay Wildlife Museum as an on-staff veterinarian, and they're probably averaging about 50,000. But she absolutely loves what she does, and she wouldn't choose another job. So there's a huge range depending on what you want to do.
And if you're a racehorse veterinarian?
That would be the 300,000.
Yeah.
I have a question about veterinarians. Thank you, John. John, I know, you know, Tom Brokaw.
He doesn't watch Channel 2.
I watch Channel 2 every night. Okay, anyway. So isn't there a big demand right now for the kids who are thinking about being a veterinarian for like large animal, like farm animals? I understand there's a real shortage of that, and there's schools that will pay for you to become a doctor, and then you fly out to the big ranches in Montana to take care of their horses or cows or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. The large animal veterinarian field is really looking for good people. The other aspect of if you want to get through veterinary school and you don't have $1 million sitting in your bank account waiting to go to school, is actually going in through the military aspect of things. And the military then will pay for your vet school, and then you can actually travel and actually be doing veterinarian work, you know, in different areas. There's a lot of soldier dogs. I don't know if you guys have heard anything about any of the any of the soldier dogs, but they're deployed all the time, and they need veterinarians out in the field to take care of them. So that's actually kind of a neat little field too, and you can actually be out there, you know, getting your school paid for and having a good career on top of it. So that's another good aspect.
Does anybody else actually want to talk money? How much you guys get paid? I mean, can you give us an estimate? I'll do this. I'll tell you. My first on-air job was in a place called Yuma, Arizona. It's where Arizona, California, Nevada, or Arizona, California, and Mexico all come together. And I'm a reporter. I'm on TV 5 days a week. I'm wearing a tie. I'm looking good. I'm trying this glamorous sort of job, right? I'm working in this small little town. I'm making, this is in 1993. I'm making $14,700 a year. That is half of what teachers make, in most cases. I mean, it's nothing, all right? When you get to a place like here, as a reporter, you can expect probably to start somewhere around 85 or 90,000. You know, the top luckiest reporters, we shall say, probably make a couple hundred. The top anchors in this industry, let's just say in a local TV market like San Francisco, you probably, in San Francisco, you probably make between $500,000 and maybe 700. Those numbers have kind of gone down. I think the last big anchor with a huge paycheck was probably Dennis Richmond, who retired a few years ago from Channel 2. I think that you know, companies become more corporate, TV stations more corporate, so they're not paying quite as much. But so there is a very high ceiling in the TV industry, but you have to be willing to work through kind of a tough road where a lot of your friends are off making pretty good money doing more conventional jobs, and you're living somewhere where you don't really want to live, making not very much money. Anybody else want to add?
I'll just give you an idea. I started in 1996 in Southern California with a single A club out of law school, so your folks will tell you what that costs, but $17,000 my first year, and had to listen to my parents every single day say, what in the world are you doing? It gets better, I will tell you that. I hire people right now, so if I hire a sales guy to come in and work for me, or girl, actually I have more females working for me than men right now, I start you out at about $35,000 or $40,000 base salary, and then the sky's the limit. If you want to make more money, go sell something. That's what I tell them, and of course I'm there to help them go sell that. You get to the top end of our business, you can make quite a bit of money, and I'm not even talking the baseball side, I'm just talking about the business side of what we do. But it's hard work. You put your time in, I put my time in. I didn't think that I would be in professional sports as long as I have been, because I didn't think I would be able to help provide for my family at $17,000 a year. But it's worked out for me, and once again, I get to do something that I love. And I think that if you find something that you love, you're going to figure out a way to make it work. But just to echo what everybody else says, go to school, work hard, and hopefully that will pay off for you financially and personally as well.
Well, first of all, I want to say thanks for John for being here tonight.
Tom.
Okay, Tom. This is a Tom Brokaw joke. I thought you'd get it. Anyway, but this has been great. Learning a little bit about everybody here has been really interesting. It's been very educational for me. So, but what I want to say about my profession, you go to college, you go to trade school, or you do whatever your passion takes you to go do, and you can go get a job and get paid a salary. Or if you decide to get into real estate and you get a real estate license or a broker's license, you get paid zero until you go make something happen. So, there's all types of different professions out there. And if you go down that road where you get paid on a commission basis, then it's your education, and that's how hard you work, how much time you put into something. But really, the sky's the limit. The only thing that's limiting you is yourself. So if you decide to go out in the world and work and get a job, that's great, and you enjoy it. That's the bottom line, again, is if you enjoy what you do, that's the most important thing, I think. And the money will follow. But if you go out and do your own thing and not get a job, it's unlimited. You can become a billionaire or a millionaire, whatever you want to do. But You know, it's a big world out there, and I think you guys are all lucky, everybody here tonight, to hear all these different people who had what they had to say, because I think it's been very interesting. So thank you very much.
And don't get the wrong idea. We are not saying that you're going to be successful and make a lot of money. That is not what, nobody up here would say that. It's not about the money. It really is about doing something you're passionate about. I mean, there are a lot of jobs out there I would not do for all the money in the world. I mean, you know, certain companies can call me and say, hey, be my spokesman. Here's $1 million, and I wouldn't do it because I morally object to what they do as a company. I don't want to be associated with that company or whatever. I mean, the point is, it's about what you find in life that really lights a fire inside of you. So try to nurture that. Anybody else want to add anything?
While we're talking about compensation, if you want a fat paycheck, don't be a librarian. I'll say, I started out at 40,000. And that's after, I have a master's degree, so a lot of people with a master's degree would make significantly more than that. But it does get to, you know, extrinsic versus intrinsic rewards. You know, the stuff that, you know, you can drive around or wear on your body and that kind of stuff, that's, it's priceless. So, and it's the danger of reading a lot when you're a kid, is you start thinking about, you have to think about what's really important to you. And it's important to put food on the table, especially if you've got a family. Those are serious things. I'm fortunate enough in a time in my life where I can choose to do something that I know will have a bigger impact on somebody else. And I don't need the extra money. I live very comfortably. I get to eat out at Jack's whenever I want. I recommend the sweet potato fries, by the way. So yeah, to think a little bit more about you know, what it is that fuels you. I mean, if we did a word cloud for tonight's panel, it would be passion. I think we've said that word more than anything else. So I'll say it again. It's about the passion. But that said, you know, we could also have. We can have a 14th seat down there at the other end for the career that hasn't been invented yet. You know, if I attended a panel when I was in high school, you know, no one stood up and said, I'd like to be a web developer. You know, that did not exist. And I think that as things move faster and faster, and being somebody who swims in information all day, I can tell you things are just accelerating beyond our wildest imaginations. There's going to be an explosion of careers that require a skill set that we haven't even invented yet. So maybe think a little bit more meta about what kind of skills you need. Certainly working with people. Like, I can't think of a person here who doesn't have to work with people and come to agreements with people. That's totally cool. And thinking creatively, whether it's playing a cello or any of these other professions here, creativity is definitely huge. So that's, again, something that I'm so glad that I have, studying art history and all those things. They do come back and they do help you. Going into college, no matter what you study, it's going to be about the people that you met and the journey that you had that's going to influence it, not the piece of paper. Though to get that job, you will need a piece of paper, but it's the other stuff. It's the other stuff.
Questions?
I don't know if we're anything. I just wanted to say that was it Einstein said something to the effect that imagination is more important than intelligence? Absolutely correct. I mean, with an imagination, you can get anywhere you want in this world. If you can create that next job, that next industry, that next invention that changes the world. I mean, who knew that creating a Beanie Baby would make someone a billionaire, right? You know, create something like that, you might have something. Oh yeah, you sir.
I have a question for John.
Yes.
Do you have any advice to
Advice for it.
what's the process of like owning a successful restaurant, starting off?
Wash dishes. You gotta wash dishes. That's how you start. Then you work your way up, bus tables. And then you wait on tables. You bartend, you work the front desk, you prep a little bit, you spend a good 10, 15 years doing that, and then you know every facet of the business. And then you can run it, and you know your operation, and you know what's happening in your restaurant without even having to be there, because you get a spidey sense. It's weird, but it's true. So the thing about restaurant business, and I encourage everybody to go to college. What everyone has said about it is absolutely true. It'll be the best experience of your life, but there are things you can do without a college degree, and you can get to be a restaurant owner without a college degree. You just got to start. I know we hire people from the Culinary Academy, so a lot of young ladies and a lot of young men go and they learn how to cook, and then they come in and everybody that works at the restaurant laughs at them for about a week. Because if you haven't been in the business and you haven't worked on the line and you haven't been on the front lines doing it, you're going to be overwhelmed. But if you start at the bottom, you learn every facet of the business, and you pay attention. I learned as much from working in restaurants that went under, because I learned what not to do. Oh, you mean the entire ownership shouldn't be drinking in the office during dinner? Good lesson. So you pay attention, you show that you have initiative, and what we do in our restaurants, we promote from within. So the people that work hard, that look like they want to learn, and that are trustworthy, those are our managers now. Our managers are 22, 23, 24, and 28 years old. And that's because they've been in the business since they were 15. And for management, if you ask about how much you make, they start about 40, and you get up to about $200,000 if you work in a big-time place. And then you can own your own plate. The range for owning your restaurant, by the way, if you want to know what you make if you own your restaurant, goes from lose everything you have, okay, lose everything your home, everything your in-laws have. That's the range. Right. And to if you open, you get something going like a cheesecake, hundreds of millions of dollars. Somewhere in between.
And to translate one thing that John just said, is pay attention. In other words, learn as much as you can from every experience that you have. All right, so ladies over here have some questions.
Are we hiring? We're always hiring. We are always constantly. If one day we sat down and said we have everybody we need, 10 minutes later we'll be hiring. That's the nature of the restaurant business.
There are all sorts of women in the FBI, yes, and every different position you can possibly have. In fact, the head of our San Francisco field office just was promoted to be like number 4, being number 3 or number 4 in the FBI. And we have analysts, agents, every type of position you can think of. Women account for about 20% of the agent population. And despite the best efforts of the FBI to increase that, it's been stable like that for many years. But it's and women have only been allowed in the FBI as agents for the past 40 years, so it's still a growing area.
One possible worst case scenario is you as a woman come across someone like Hannibal Lecter. I mean, you don't want to do that. Yes, sir.
Does the college you go to actually matter with the job you get?
One more time.
Does the college you go to actually matter with the job you get?
Kind of depends.
Yeah, I think it does depend, but I think what you get no matter where you go to school are contacts and connections, people that can be influential to you in your career, people that can help you along, basically friends for life. And if you go to a more high-profile school, maybe they'll have more corporate-related connections and so forth, but like some of these guys, I started at DVC and went to state school and was able to parlay that into an extremely lucrative career. So I think it matters more that you're out there and putting yourself out there and meeting people and concentrating on those people that can benefit you and where you want to go.
Yeah, there's only so many people that can go to a private university like Stanford, and there's no doubt that's going to open doors for you when you graduate from Stanford. There's been more presidents of the United States that have graduated from Harvard University than any other university. But keep in mind, everything that we keep talking about, in like John said, those $1 million jobs in the news agencies and even in software, it's a pyramid. There's only a certain amount of people that actually hit that top pyramid. It's like a football player, right? It's a pyramid. There's only so many pro ball players. Don't let that discourage you, right? If you can get there, fine. If not, it's really your passion, your desire, and your abilities when you leave that university that's going to determine where you end up and what you do.
Yes, sir.
what if you work hard for the job you want and like you're really excited to get it, but for whatever reason you don't get it? Would you guys suggest it to have a backup plan for another job you might be interested in case the one you really want it doesn't work?
Are you trying to be an actor? Because then, you know, you're trying to do computer science. I mean, there are, as we've been saying, endless jobs in computer science, in one way or another. So I think that if that's your focus, and you get the right kind of education, you really emphasize the right things along the way, you're going to be okay. I don't think that you're going to have a problem finding a good job in high tech. Is that fair to say?
Don't settle. Don't settle. If you're passionate about something, keep going after it. If you miss the first opportunity, keep going after it again. Don't settle for anything less than what makes you happy.
You know, and sometimes what happens too is kids come out of high school. You know, I'll use my daughter as an example, right? So we've been up here chatting a little bit because my daughter wanted to be a vet. And she went to DVC. She got really good grades. She went to the University of Arizona. Universities are a little bit distracting, right? So she didn't do as well as I demanded of her for me to pay 40 grand a year for her to go to university, right? So, but what I told her was, I said, you're struggling right now, you need to step back. So sometimes if you want to be president of a company, you have to step back and you have to wash the floors, right? So she's stepping back, she's staying in that industry, she's going to become a vet tech. And I encouraged her to do that, stay in the industry, stay focused on your ultimate goal, give yourself a break. Life's a long journey these days. It used to be, you know, people were dying in their 60s. We're living now way into our 90s. You can have a lot of different careers. And you can, you know, when we were growing up, and I'm looking at some people out here too, remember they used to say you can't teach an old dog new tricks? And for some reason, people thought our brains stopped learning. Are you kidding me? When I finished my education at 35, when I got my degree at 35, when I went back at 30, or 31, I can't remember. But I had 2 kids, a wife, I was a manager and a leader at the Chrysler Corporation, and I had people tell me, you're too old. What are you going back to school? What are you going to school for? I'm like, A, they're paying for it. Go ahead.
Well, to add on what you said, that even if you're old, you can still learn more things.
Which, by the way, I'm not old. Right. I would look at this.
I know. I'm just saying, just to add on what you said. Like, I just remember that there was this really famous quote from Gandhi, which he said that sorry.
It's okay.
Live as much. It was something like you just keep on living like there's no tomorrow, but keep on learning as if you were to live forever.
Correct. That's great.
Very good. Yeah.
It's a very good quote.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to get into the medical business, and so I love to draw. So I've been drawing like different prosthetics and like designing like different I don't know, like robotic like helmets and stuff for like the blind, and like for example, I thought of like a hearing, right? But it like since you could hear, so the hearing aid would send out a pulse, like echolocation, and it would come back through and then transmit through the eye, like through your eye, and then it could like send out a beat, and you could like see like a motion sensor.
Please stop talking. This is like Shark Tank. You and I are going to get together after this. Okay? Please don't share any more of this information. Anybody else? Stop it.
Think about biomedical engineering.
Okay.
That's what you need to look at.
And as far as college goes, I was wondering which college would be like the best medical for like medical engineering.
So there's this whole field called biomedical engineering, which is exactly what you're describing. And just as one example, I went to Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and you could major in biomedical engineering there. You take a number of classes in pre-med, you take a number of classes in engineering, mechanical, electrical design. That sounds like something that you should pursue.
Fantastic engineering school as well.
I would encourage you to look up DreamSpark and see what those folks are doing there, kids like you, because there was a group of kids that took the, are you all familiar with Connect? the device that goes on your Xbox 360. So they took that device, which is essentially a combination of radar and sonar, and they put it on the back of their head, put the feed through a helmet, just like what you're talking about, but they didn't go through the ear for blind people. And blind people are not necessarily black blind, right? Like we think. They can't see it. They can see minute shades of color, and you'll see a lot of blind people going like this because they can actually see the colors. And so it creates a sonar image or radar image of the environment, and they can walk around without a stick. So it's just what you're talking about. So it's that kind of encouragement. You'll be with a group of folks that are doing the same thing.
In one word, how would you sum up your job?
My job?
I think that's for everybody, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's quick, one word.
One word.
That's good.
One word.
Rewarding.
Yeah, I'll go with fun.
It's the word that defines what I do, it's hospitality.
Arts and crafts.
Fulfilling.
Solving problems.
Flexible.
Empowerment.
Enjoyable.
Ideas.
Interesting.
I'm just going to say yes.
Agreed. Got it. I give it up for everybody here on the panel. Really appreciate it. Just so you know, I'm sure everybody here will be able to hang out for a few more minutes, talk to you individually if you have any questions for us individually. But I just hope, especially you young people, take one or two of the things that you heard here tonight and try to put those into motion in your own lives. Try to take advantage, again, of those opportunities that are in front of you. All right? All right. Thank you very much. Good luck with panel.
Of course. How you doing, man? Good to see you. Hey guys, how are you? Isn't that wonderful?